One of my favorite moments in the Justice League cartoon is this moment with Superman.
This little guy was crazy for Christmas. We used to wrap his presents in lead foil so he couldn't peek.
You mean Santa wrapped them?
Oh, of course, dear.
In a world of gods and new gods and the Speed Force and a gorilla city, is Santa Claus really that much of a stretch for DC Comics? The answer is no. No, it's not. But anyone with an internet connection could go to the DC Wiki and find that out. Surely nobody is stupid enough to comb through every single one of Santa's appearances in DC Comics and try to come up with a definitive explanation for who Santa is in this fictional world. Yeah, someone is dumb enough, and it's me. Now, the original idea for this video was for me to take a look at all the various depictions of Santa over the years in DC Comics and kind of give you like the rundown of Mr. Claus and show you just how powerful he is. But what I found was all over the place, and it's all super contradictory, and some of it is just like really, really weird. And since I'm cursed with this knowledge, yeah, you're gonna have to be now too. So the first appearances that any DC property would see of Santa were in the Superman Christmas Adventure comics. These special issues were a promotional item handed out to retailers, but although 2 of them were made, only 1 got digitally released. I was able to track down scans of the other one, but honestly, it's pretty boring, and it also has a racist depiction of a Japanese pilot, so I guess it's a good call for them to have not made that one widely available. For the book that we're talking about, a couple of greedy businessmen were trying to sabotage Santa after he refused to have his workshop make commercial goods for them to sell at retail. Huh, that's some pretty interesting villains for a comic that's literally made for corporate stores. Anyway, they kidnapped Santa's reindeer, but although Superman got them back, one of the businessmen made them sick by spraying them with a special gas. Not wasting any time, Superman lifted Santa's sleigh and flew him around the world as scheduled. As for the businessmen, Mr. Claus forgave them, teaching them the true meaning of Christmas. Just a few years later, Santa made an appearance in the official Superman comics in Action Comics number 105 in 1947. It's here that we find yet another greedy businessman, but instead of wanting to exploit Santa, this dude just hates Christmas. So much so that he went all the way to the North Pole in order to sabotage the holiday. This wannabe Grinch gave Santa Claus some special chocolates that made him way fatter than usual, and thus unable to slide down chimneys. But just to be thorough, the businessmen also drugged the reindeer so that they couldn't fly. Superman came to the rescue and did what he could to help Kris Kringle lose the weight as fast as possible, including a super massage, scaring the pounds off by putting Saint Nick into some deadly situations, flying him to a volcano to sweat off the weight, and pushing him to run at superhuman speeds to burn calories. This got Santa down back to his original weight, and Superman flew the sleigh himself in lieu of the zonked out reindeer. Of course, Christmas was saved, and much like the last story that we talked about, the greedy businessman had a change of heart and learned the true meaning of Christmas. Now, although I'm sticking to the main canon universe, or at least as best as I can for this video, I'd be remiss to not mention that a few years later, DC started to publish officially licensed Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer comics that they would put out once a year. A couple of fun facts about this. First off, that Rudolph comic is officially in the DC multiverse and was stated to take place in Earth 12. As for the book being licensed, that's because Rudolph is a trademarked character and is enforced by the Rudolph Company. And although it's not related to this DC Santa video, it's fun to mention that the famous animated movie, on the other hand, is public domain because of a typo. Yeah, look it up. It's just a neat tidbit that I found out while doing research for this video. Anyway, back to the subject. For a good while, these Rudolph comics would be the main place that we would see Santa appearances in DC Comics, but we did get the occasional pop-up, like the time that he teamed up with Superman to fight the villainous Toyman. Superman thought it was all a dream, but he discovered a Kryptonian holo toy in his cape's pocket that projected an image of Santa. Clearly, the adventure was real, and he teamed up with the genuine article. Sadly though, not everything was holly and jolly in this pre-crisis era. Take this issue of DC's horror comic, Dark Mansion of Forbidden Love. It features one of those fake donation Santas bringing a little girl to his apartment and hanging her for pocket change. When the landlord entered his apartment and discovered the crime, she sent the cops after him. Now, I'm sure you're probably wondering why I'm talking about this fake Santa in a video about the real Santa. Well, that's because this guy needed a place to hide, so he got inside of a random sleigh that he found in an alley. Yeah, it turns out that Christopher Kringle has a downtown workshop and was just about to start his annual trip around the world. The murderous fake Santa got up to discover that he was flying, but he lost his footing, fell, and accidentally hung himself on some rope that he got tangled up in, leading to this ghastly image gracing the skies. Oddly enough though, that's not the darkest Santa-related thing in this video, so stay tuned. After Crisis on Infinite Earths reset the DC multiverse, they started to be a lot more diligent with their continuity. So now that we can forget all about the mismatched depictions of Santa Claus prior, you'd think that this would be the perfect opportunity for DC to get their story straight for Father Christmas here. But they didn't. I mean, with the 90s being, well, you know, the 90s, we got a murderous slave driver depiction of Chris Crusher Kringle in the Lobo comics, who is so evil that Lobo had to kill him twice in 2 separate issues. But although that depiction of Santa has never been seen again, my favorite has to be in 2008's DC Holiday Special, where they gave him a similar origin story to Superman. Doomed planet, baby in a spaceship, lands on Earth, a nice old couple raised him, he develops powers as he ages up, decides to do some good in the world, has a base in the Arctic, and all of that stuff. However, that very same year, the Hellblazer series went into the origins of the actual Agios Nicholas, and walks the reader through his life where he became a bishop that was revered for his charity, benevolence, and anonymous gift-giving. Oh, and in the comic, he's also a miracle worker who resurrected some murdered kids. Constantine tracked down St. Nick's remains, ground them into a powder, transported them through airport security, and snorted them for power. Yeah, DC Santa stuff is really, really weird. Although this cements St. Nicholas as a real-life figure, Santa Claus as a mythical figure also does canonically exist in the DC universe. And this is most likely done through the power of the Dreaming, a dimension outside of the multiverse that contains the dreams of all sentient beings, and it's ruled over by a man named Dream. He comes from a powerful group of cosmic entities called the Endless. This mythical version of Santa coming from the Dreaming was explicitly confirmed by DC's map of the multiverse, but exactly how that works has never really been explained. The closest we got was when Hal Jordan became a powerful being called the Spectre. He wandered into a dimension that I guess is supposed to be the Dreaming, because it's here that he meets a version of Santa that reveals that although he was once flesh and blood, he kind of evolved past that thanks to the imagination and faith of millions of children. Oh, and also in this winter wonderland was Ebenezer Scrooge, and also Charles Dickens, but not like the real writer, but rather the idealized version of the man from the culture's imagination. However, despite living in this extra-dimensional realm, Santa clearly has a place in the world, such as this early appearance of Superman when he discovered a reindeer that fell from the sky. Clearly, this was one of Santa's, so Superman flew to the North Pole in order to return the beast to Mr. Claus, who reveals that his steeds have come down with a mysterious virus that prevented them from flying. Of course, this prompted Superman to pick up the sleigh and fly it himself. You might notice a recurring theme with Superman carrying the sleigh. I guess DC just really liked the imagery and it's now super iconic, but I guess nobody but me has been dumb enough to read so many holiday specials back to back to notice. Anyway, Supes begged to deliver a few of the presents himself, and when he broke away from the sleigh, Superman noticed that time passed a little bit differently for Santa on Christmas Eve. But apparently Mr. Claus doesn't just limit himself to Earth, because in the DCU Holiday Bash in 1997, we get this amazing display of Santa traveling to Apokolips, avoiding the planet's hyper-advanced weaponry, and manages to hand-deliver a lump of coal to Darkseid year after year. It also appears that even though Santa is powerful, he can still be killed, as seen in Young Justice number 40 in 2002, where a villain named Mordrek puts his essence into a meteor-like bomb in hopes of destroying the Earth. Because comics. Santa's sleigh accidentally intercepted the bomb, which instantly killed him and his reindeer. Oh, and just so that we're clear, Santa's reindeer are sentient talking creatures, like we saw in the DCU Infinite Holiday Special, where Blitzen enlisted the help of Detective Chimp in order to prank call Santa, claiming that he was with the Anti-Christmas League in hopes of getting some time off. That's why it's extra disturbing that the Young Justice issue literally mentions the smell of cooked reindeer in the air and how it was raining torched pieces of fur and antlers. The Young Justice team took it upon themselves to deliver presents that year and speculated
speculated that since he's immortal, maybe Santa would be reborn next year. That might explain why in Swamp Thing number 115, we saw the Cajun Papa Noel and his flying crocodiles. Is this the same Santa Claus? Are there several different Santas that exist all at the same time? I honestly don't know. DC has made Santa so freaking confusing, and you'd think that after Flashpoint, with the DC multiverse being rebooted again, that this would give DC yet another opportunity to get their Santa lore straight. Now, admittedly, when Santa made an appearance in the Harley Quinn series, we could very much consider that to be non-canon. I mean, after all, comedy series like hers do a lot of wacky stuff that's never mentioned again, and considering that this issue involves Harley entering Santa's mind to fight off the inner demons that old Saint Nick has been repressing for all these years in order to stay jolly all the time, yeah, that sounds to be pretty non-canon. Oh, and Santa also has a mental summer paradise that's filled with bikini babes doting on him, so there's that. One of the more serious interpretations is also one of the most confusing ones out there. So, in Black Adam's country of Kahndaq, he spoke to one of his citizens, who is this little girl that used to live in New York City. She was sad that Santa seemingly wouldn't be coming to their country, so Black Adam took matters into his own hands. He flew to an island in the North Pole and uncovered the hidden city of Mira behind an enchanted wall of ice. Its residents were a bunch of Yetis and green-skinned elves, but its ruler, Nicholas, was a powerful wizard, and he's actually the one that hid the city in the first place. Black Adam swiftly defeated old Saint Nick and shoved a map into his face, threatening him into delivering gifts and filling the stockings of all of the children of Kahndaq. As for Adam, though, a lump of coal would suffice. Now, here's where things get a little bit tricky. You see, the book says that this is ancient Mira, so either this whole hidden city exists in the modern day, or Black Adam somehow traveled to the past to do all of this. But since Santa clearly existed as a concept beforehand for the child to miss him, and despite the magical beings, Mira was an actual ancient city in real life, so I'm inclined to believe that this was some time travel shenanigans, and that freaking Black Adam of all people is the one that created Santa Claus.
I originally thought that this video was just going to be a fun little romp through some of DC's overlooked lore, but honestly, I'm more confused than when I first started, because none of this adds up, and it's super frustrating. I mean, DC has been able to show that they can handle even weirder concepts like the emotional spectrum and the Speed Force. So why is something as seemingly mundane as Santa this difficult for them to wrap their heads around? I honestly don't know. But what do you guys think? Was there a particular depiction of Santa that I covered in this video that you thought was the most interesting? And also, if you were in charge of DC Comics, how exactly would you handle Santa? Let me know down there in the comments. This video is part of my show called Because Comics, where I take a look at all the crazy, strange, and straight up bizarre things that make comic books, well, comic books. So if you liked this, maybe check out some of the other episodes of the show. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully I'll see you next time.